Hello, everybody. Welcome to Backstage at Speaking Your Brand. I'm Diane Diaz, and I am a speaking coach, personal brand strategist, as many of you know. And I appreciate you joining me today for our chat about how to make, I'll get back to that in a minute, how to make your presentations stand out. Today, we're going to be talking about acronyms. Now, if you've ever seen some of our content that we share or worked with me or Carol, you know that we talk about creating a framework, using acronyms, possibly alliteration for your framework. And you might be wondering why we want to do this. Well, we like to use acronyms for several reasons. And hi, Carol. And we're going to be talking about why you want to use acronyms, how to create one, what tools to use to find things for your acronym. And I'll be going through some examples here on our board today to show you exactly how you can do that. We're going to use some acronyms that are Speaking Your Brand acronyms to go through this as an example. So why would somebody want to use an acronym when they're creating a talk or, creating content for any purpose? Well, acronyms make your content easier to digest for your audience. So if you're giving a talk, for example, and you're delivering a lot of information, which of course, you want to deliver value, an acronym is going to help your audience to walk away with something they can remember. They can digest the content more easily, they can remember it, and they can share it with other people. So it's really easy for them to do that. Another reason why you want to use an acronym is it engages with your audience more easily because you're giving them sort of a touch point, again, to remember you by, but it's easier for you as the speaker or the content sharer creator to make that connection with them based on the acronym because, again, it's easier to remember. And then finally, it simplifies the content. I know that all of us, when we're sharing content, whether it be on social media platforms, in a talk, in a workshop, or any work that you do with your clients, the temptation is to share a ton of information. And that can be overwhelming, not just for us as the speaker or the workshop facilitator, but also for the audience, because a lot of information, people kind of start to shut down. So an acronym for your content is going to simplify the content and create a better experience for your audience. Now, that's great, but you might be saying, well, how do I come up with an acronym? Now, I will say that we do this in our work with our clients a lot. I personally love creating acronyms. It's probably one of my favorite things about working with a client is to create that acronym to build a framework for their content. But you can do the same thing yourself. And I'm going to tell you some tips on how to do that. So how do you decide on words for your acronym or what word that acronym is? And keep in mind, too, it can be alliteration. So it could be something like the 3 C's of personal branding, for example. We're going to be specifically talking about acronyms today, but you could use alliteration and do the same thing. But how do you come up with a word for your acronym if that's what you want to use? I recommend that, first of all, is you choose a word that connects to the work that you do. So, for example, we're going to go through one example today where the acronym is voice. And obviously, speaking your brand's about speaking, so using your voice. So voice makes sense. So choose a word that somehow connects to the work you do, your industry, your expertise, the things you want to share, your content. Make the word related to you and your work. Also, shorter words are better. I would recommend sticking to 6 letters or below. When you get above that, it's harder for the audience to remember. It's harder for you to remember. It's not as catchy and it's not as easily shareable. So shorter is better. Alliterations and acronyms are awesome. Yes. I think that was alliteration, wasn't it, Carol? Hi, Francis. Okay, so how do we come up with words for each letter of the acronym? Now, let me actually start with an example and we'll talk it through using this example. So as I mentioned, this chat is how to make your presentation stand out. So let's just use the M.A.K.E acronym. I feel like a teacher writing, let's make sure you can see this. Move it this way a little bit. So this is the M.A.K.E acronym. I feel like a teacher writing on my chalkboard here. So we chose a word for make your presentation stand out. Obviously, it's connected, right? So that makes sense. Now, how do we choose words that relate to each of these? Well, we want to think of a couple of things. There's lots of different ways you can go with this. So you can think about the work that you do in your industry, and the words can relate to that. Either, the work you do, your thought leadership message, your content. So the words that you choose could be related to that. It could be words that you come up with that are longer, but you can shorten them somehow. Also, I like to use Google to search for words. So if I'm trying to think of, let's say I think of a word for M, but I'm like, I don't quite like that word. I'll go to Google and I'll say something like, I'll type in verbs that begin with the letter M, or action words that begin with the letter M, or adjectives that begin with the letter M. And this starts to give me some ideas. Now, you might not find the perfect word using that method, but it's going to get your ideas flowing. So then you'll be able to find something. You can also use, and I highly recommend this, a Google search. I mean, the thesaurus.com search. So go to thesaurus.com. So if you think of a word that starts with the letter M, you don't quite like it, or it doesn't quite fit with what you do, and you want a similar word, just go to thesaurus.com, start typing in things that connect to that word. So synonyms for make, or synonyms for motion, or synonyms for whatever. Again, it's not a perfect science. You've got to sort of play around with the words. I happen to be a word person. I love words. So it's easy for me to use different tools and then start generating all these ideas. And what I would say is do this, jot it down on a board and start writing some options there. And naturally, the best word's going to sort of come to the top. You're going to come up with some things that aren't a good fit. And that's okay. But you have to start somewhere. So write your acronym once you get it out on the board, and then to find words that go with it, just starting jotting things down, talk it through with someone else, see what makes sense, and then you can kind of go from there and iterate and make it better. So let's talk about make then, and I'll show you kind of how I'll tell you the process behind how we came up with make. It was actually a conversation between me and Carol. I think Carol actually said, "Oh, make could be our acronym." So now what words go with that? So we started brainstorming back and forth in Voxer, Voxer, the messaging app. And so the first one we came up with was memorable, because naturally we want our acronyms and our content to be memorable. So that's the first one we came up with. And the second one occurred to me very quickly, which was actionable. So clearly you want the content to be actionable. So actionable, so memorable and actionable. Great. Now, K was hard because K, there's not a lot of words that start with K. There's not a lot of words that fit with what we were trying to say and with our content and our ideas that start with K. So that was a challenge. So we kind of went back and forth on that. We came up with some that weren't good. Then we actually moved on to E because it was a little bit easier. So for E, we came up with enduring. And that one was, again, a little bit easier. Enduring makes sense. We want these to stick with people for a long time. So we want them to be enduring. So again, with K, we came up with some that were like, not good. So, and some of them actually meant the opposite of what I was trying to say. They were K words. I did a Google search. What we landed on was knowledgeable, because you're sharing knowledge. We're making the presentations stand out. They're going to be knowledgeable presentations. You're sharing knowledge and all of that. Okay, so knowledgeable. Oh, I hope I spelled this right. The pressure is on and my little board is falling down here. Uh-oh, one moment. Let's get this up there. There we go. Okay, so knowledgeable. I think there's an E in there. Okay, so that's the MAKE acronym. That one was easy. We're choosing one word for each thing. Here's a tip. You don't have to come up with one word for each thing. You can connect to your acronym a word, so like an action word, or something you want someone to actually do, or it can be more of an idea. So the idea that surrounds your content. So let's talk about an acronym where it's more of an idea versus an actual one word. So again, it could be one word, it could be a sentence for each one where the sentence starts with the A, that's more related to your idea or the concept that you're trying to share. So here is one that's more based on ideas. So let's start this one. Voice. Okay, so this is our helping women share their voice. Use your voice to amplify others. And then we use the voice acronym as a way to convey that content. This is a case where it's not one word, but instead it's an idea or a concept related to each of these letters. So the first one was your viewpoint. So V for viewpoint. And again, it was more of an idea. So viewpoint on your topic or area. Okay, so that's an idea. Doesn't have to be one word. Don't get married to that because sometimes it's really hard to find that one word. The second one was was open, bold, and direct communication. Okay. So again, an idea. And then an individual story that you universalize to the audience. And then the container, we talk about this a lot at Speaking Your Brand. This is a container that your ideas go in, like a podcast, a YouTube series of 4 videos, a podcast series, a book, whatever it might be. So this is the container. And it was actually container or project for your message. And then the last one was emotive and vulnerable with your content, right? So your message needs to be emotive and vulnerable. So now we have 5 ideas connected to our 5 letters: voice, that's connected to the work we do, connected to, how we serve our clients. And then each idea is connected to the work we do, and it's more of an idea versus a word. So again, that's another way to approach your acronym. So that makes it a little bit easier when you're trying to come up with words, because I know this is actually, I think, a little bit more challenging when you're trying to literally pick one word for each letter, because again, like K was really a struggle for us to get to that word. If that doesn't work, don't worry. You do not have to be married to the one word acronym. Go to this and try this. And what you might find is you might play around with this and it actually leads you back to having one word. That's okay. There's no right or wrong way to do this, frankly. Okay, so then we have another one that is sort of the idea related to the letter of the word, but is also very short and concise. So I did a talk where I used the BRAG acronym. I'm going to put it over here so you can see it. Yes, okay. So it was BRAG. And I used it in my title. I'm a big fan of using the acronym in your title because it creates curiosity for your audience. So for example, this backstage is called Make Your Presentation Stand Out. Somebody actually did comment to my post on LinkedIn and said, "Ooh, what does MAKE stand for?" And I said, well, come to the LinkedIn Live and find out. So you see, it creates curiosity and interest. So my talk was Women Need to Brag. Why? Why do they need to brag? Yes, come to the talk and you'll find out. So my brag was to boost your confidence, and by the way, my talk was all about how women, a lot of times based on societal cues, want to stay small, not talk about their accomplishments, not quote unquote brag about themselves. And my premise is, no, you actually need to brag and tell people why you're amazing in the work that you do, because if you don't do it, your message isn't going to get out there and you can't help people. So my whole premise was around, you have to brag. So that's why I put it in my title. And then through my talk, I started talking about these points. And this is an acronym that's easily shareable. In fact, after my talk, a woman reached out to me by email and said, I loved your talk and I love that idea of bragging. And I'm actually going to share that with my son, who I think he was maybe like 10. She was going to share that idea with him to give him a little bit more confidence. There. I love that. So then we've got boost your confidence. The next one was resist comparison. I'm abbreviating here because I don't have room. I know you get the point. So resist comparison. So boost your confidence. And that was something like, stand with your hands on your hips, get the power pose going so you feel more confident. The next thing was resist comparison. Stop comparing yourself to people on Instagram and people you follow who are in your same industry that you feel, they don't make you feel less than, but when you see their content, it makes you feel like you're not doing enough. So resist comparison. Then act as if. This is sort of the visualization, visualizing yourself getting that talk, visualizing yourself on that TEDx stage, visualizing yourself getting that client or giving that, doing that workshop. When you visualize yourself and you act as if, you actually create more sort of muscle memory in your brain for actually achieving the thing that you want to achieve and doing well at it. And it actually, for me at least, will reduce my sort of apprehension about doing whatever that thing is. And then finally, grow your brand. Now you may notice, and so grow your brand was about you're doing these different things, but you also had to put effort into getting your brand out into the world and positioning yourself in a certain way, building your thought leadership message, letting people know about what you do, and growing your brand. Now, you may notice that this seems like you have to do them in order for this particular acronym. You don't. You can do them. You can start by growing your brand. They all work together. So you could make your acronym a step 1, step 2, step 3 sort of acronym. That's fine. And actually that could be, that could work for certain types of content where you do actually want them to do it in order to kind of lead to whatever that outcome is. So this one could have worked that way as well. Like, first boost your confidence, then resist comparison, do the visualizing by acting as if, and then grow your brand to get it all out into the world. Could have worked that way. Actually, not the way I intended it, but it could. Or it could just be that it's a combination of 5, 6 things that you want someone to do, or that you're asking them to do, to arrive at whatever the outcome is that related to the work that you do, or the message that you're putting out there. So those are my tips for creating acronyms. I'm sure you can come up with a bunch more. I know that, at least for me, and I know for Carol too, that once we get started on this acronym work and thinking of things, we can't stop. Again, tips for finding words: use Google. Literally, I'm telling you, if you Google words that's actually, let's say adjectives that start with the letter M, or actually adjectives that start with M is what I would type in. There are different websites that kind of bring in all these different words and end up showing you literally a list of words that you can choose from. They're not all going to be appropriate, but you can see what word options might work. And it'll tell you, usually in that search, it'll tell you, 3-letter word, 4-letter word, 5-letter word, all the way up to maybe 10 or 12 letters. So you get ideas for shorter or longer ones, right? So it's a really good tool to use. And then, of course, thesaurus.com. And also, I would recommend talking it through with somebody to see if it really lands and if it's really clear. And then just play around with it, because I guarantee that once you get started on this, your brain won't be able to stop. There have been many a time that I've had communication with a client about their, working on their acronym. And then I go on my walk, and during my walk, I start thinking, and I just start jotting down words, and then I'll send them, how about this? How about this? How about this? So, just play around with it, have fun with it, most importantly. And then when you think of an acronym for the work that you do, I want you to share it in the comments here and tell us, what the acronym is, and what, if you have gone that far, what the different letters of the acronym stand for. And let's see what you've got. I love to see people creating acronyms and using words in this way that connect with the audience, that help the audience remember their content, help the audience share their content. So tell us what acronyms you have. I'd love to see what you've done with this information. And then if I can help you in any way, let me know. Look forward to your comments. All right. That's our lesson for today, everybody, here on my little makeshift chalkboard. If you have any questions, let me know. All right. All right. Bye.